So tonight I want to welcome you to our meeting here at the Historical Society. And our speaker tonight is Mr. Ed Ruggles. And I think everybody in here knows Ed and probably has known him forever. Ed came to Anderson County in 1954. He's a graduate of the University of Kentucky with his bachelor's degree in agriculture. He has a master's degree in agriculture also from UK. And Ed has also done further graduate work at Michigan State. So he's got a lot of bull in him like some of the others standing up in the room in here. We know that, and everyone knows, I think, pretty much Ed was the county agent of Anderson County for a number of years. And I've asked Ed to speak and sort of talk a little bit about his years as a county agent. And one thing you can certainly tell from most of you, I think, we're all similar in age and so forth, that the county certainly has changed over the time that when Ed came in to where we are today. You don't see as many farmers, you don't see as, certainly dairy farmers, you don't see those very often anymore. And this little town has changed dramatically, this county's changed dramatically, and Ed's been right there to see it. And so I've asked him to kind of give his views of being a county agent and some of the other things and so forth that he has seen. And so before I even let him speak yet, if anybody, when you come out the door, you can sign up so I'll know who was here. Okay? I want to thank you, Ed, for being here, and our speaker tonight is Mr. Ed Ruggles. Thank you.
Kind of hard to know where to start. And I would like to make this light and yet a little philosophical at the same time. And so I'm going to do what my wife asked me not to do. Just a few statistical notes to get us started here. When I came here, reading over the census at that time, there were 8,700 people in Anderson County. And then in 60, while there were 86, we lost 100 somewhere in that period of time. They list 126,000 acres, but we also had, I've seen it listed, of 133,000, so there's a little variation in there. When I was born in Mason County in 1926, April the 5th, but I was conceived in Denver, Colorado. And my mother and father both here. Dad's from Lewis County. He's a Civil War Republican, and my mother was a rebel. And when I was 17, my dad and my mother's brother were arguing over a judge's race in Mason County. And we just gotten through putting up hay in August. That's when you cut hay, when it was nice and already seeded and so tough it wasn't mostly cellulose, you know. And so they were arguing over it, and I said, you know, when I get to be 18, I'm going to register Democrat. Well, my dad in that old salty blue shirt stood up and he said, Ed Logan, you see that Sugarloaf Mountain and the Pret Singer? Your grandfather and my grandfather and Uncle John Hamrick rode over that mountain, served this union, said, you ever go for a damn rebel, don't come back home. When I was 18, I registered and I left home. I registered Democrat. And so my dad never did we never discussed politics, but I went to see him, happened to be down when Kennedy got shot. Went to visit him one weekend, and he was crying. Yeah. And that's kind of my background. Well, you say, how do you train to be a county agent? I started when I was 4 years old. And I didn't know it. Good evening. We come back home from Denver every summer. Ride the mother, bring us, we 2 boys back. And my grandmother would let me take a pencil and mark the eggs to be set and go down and put them under the hen. And then she'd let me go down with the basket with her and gather eggs. And she'd raise the old setting hen up, and if there's a fresh egg in there, I got to pick it. And then my grandfather, one day, he said, Eddie Logan, the old sow has gone back in the field and found pigs. And he said, how are we going to get them home? And I said, well, Papa, that old coat you have out there in the smokehouse, we could tie the sleeves up and button it up and everything and put them in that and carry them and be warm. He said, well, could we put a tub on the sled and put it down in the thing? You think it'd be warm enough? Yeah, that's what we did. I get up on the horse with him, we ride back in the field, put the pigs in the old sow, and then we ride back and he takes them and puts them out. And so you see, demonstration is what a county agent, that's the fuel that you work with. And so I was trained when I was just 4 or 5 years old and didn't know it. Then, in coming to the university, my idea, I wanted to be a vet. And I had a buddy in Maysville named George Fitzgerald. His dad was sheriff. And he said, I'm going up to Cornell. Why don't you come go with me up there? Well, I didn't have enough money to go to Cornell or to come to university either. But I came over to the university in March the 19th, 1945. And I brought me a little cardboard suitcase, that hard paper suitcase with my 1 extra pair of pants in it. And as I walked across the viaduct, I got off that Greyhound bus. I was never so blue in all my life, and I was going back home. I was ready to go back home. But there was a girl that had graduated from Orangeburg High School, and she was a Gamma Delta. And big, heavy-set girl, you know, not attractive at all. But she was real sweet. And I said, I'd ask her mother, and she told me how to find her. And so I came up across the viaduct, and there on Maxwell was the Gamma house. I knocked on the door, and a little cute thing came to the door, and I said, is Alma Clarkson here? And she said, yes, come in. And so I went in, and she went to the stairs and yelled, Alma! And she said, yeah, somebody see you. About that time, the doorbell rang again. And here comes a jockey, you know, and he has on his hind leg, has on Argyle socks and snappy looking clothes. And she says, Susie, ain't here? And he said, hey, a football player. Here comes Susie, she jumps off the stair right in his arms, and they bust right there, and I said, gosh, I'm gonna like this. But here comes Alma truck down, you know, and she's, Eddie Logan, how are you? I said, Alma, I'm lost. I'm supposed to find Bradley Hall, and I don't know where it is. Well, I'll come and go with you. And so she saved the day. I was ready to get on the bus and come back. Well, had the good fortune, when I was 17, to go to work for Parker Tobacco Company in Maysville, building barrels, hogsheads. Never built one in my life. And old man Polly told me, he says, I'm sorry, I don't need any labor. And I said, well, is there anything I could do? He said, you ever build a barrel? I said, no, but I'll try. He took me down to cooper shop, and there were 3 men. Harry Ringo was the head leader of that bunch. And they turned me every way but loose. They taught me how to build barrels. They taught me how to play dice. They taught me how to swap knives. In the first week, I earned for $30.14, and I owed all $30 to them. And when I got ready to leave, Harry Ringo says, Ruggles, I thought you said that you were room and boarding in town. I said, I am. He said, what's your room and board? I said, $10. How you gonna pay it? And I said, well, I sold a little tobacco crop and I've got some money in the bank, but I've never written a check. And if I wrote a check, my mother killed me. He said, can I loan you $10? I said, I sure would appreciate it. Could you put a penny with it? And he said, what for? I said, well, I've got 14 cents. And with 15 cents, I can buy butterscotch sundae up on the thing, and that's what I'll do for the weekend. And so I paid Miss Barber the $10 and sat there. When I left that winter, those men gave me back every dime that I'd lost to them. They gave me back 6 case knives that they'd dropped. And they told, you know what they told me? Said, Ruggles, we hope we've taught you a lesson. Said, you so damn green. When you came in here, you smell like mountain stove wood. And so, that got me started. Well, the next year, I went up to Reynolds Tobacco Company. George Ballou was the president. And I got a better job. I weighed in Ripley, Covington, and Carrollton tobacco. All the tobacco was shipped into that plant. I was responsible for weighing it and cataloging it. And I bought me $1 red cap, leather cap. And they had what they call a bull gang. Navy Davis, he was a carnival guy, and they set all the barrels and everything. And one night, Mr. George Malone was the supervisor, double-fisted Irishman, wore a black felt hat, and he didn't mind how he talked. And, you know, and he used the N-word pretty good, and they jumped when he said it. So he called me one Saturday night and he said, we've got an extra load of tobacco in here from Carrollton, and the doors are frozen on the cars and everything, and I need you to come up here and help catalog that tobacco tonight. And I said, because the train's got to go out here. I said, all right. And so I was dressed to go out, but I put on the work clothes and came up there. And when I got up there, there was the bull gang all out there on the deck, and there was a big, light-skinned black guy there that I'd never seen. And when I stepped up, Navy Davis says, red cap. Say, watch that guy. He's gonna throw the barrel on you. And those barrels are, when you grab them and set them, you put your shoulder against the guy and you reach and prop that foot against the wall, and you pull that barrel and put it on a bulldog to pull it out. And I put my shoulder up against that guy, and pulled that barrel and set it, you know. Well, there was a Charlie boy, another black boy there, and one day I was asking him to do something, and he was smarter than me. And Navy Davis says, "Charlie boy, you ain't gonna messing with Red Cap." Well, Tom Malone says, at the end where it said, "Where are those in women?" And I said, "They're up in the steam room. Go up there and get them and tell them to get down here and sweep these floors." I said, "Okay." So I left my scale and went upstairs in the steam room, and there they all were sitting around on baskets. And I said, "Rachel, Tom Malone said that you women need to get downstairs and get those floors swept." She said, "Red Cap, stick your head over here a minute." I said, "Yes." She said, "You get off my back, I'll put the rasher to you." And so I go down and I said, "You know, I didn't know I offended those women up there, but I said, Rachel said to get up for her back, she'd put a razor to me." He said, "Yes, so you be careful how you talk to her." Said she cut her husband's throat. And so, Mr. George Ballou, and this laboring a little bit, but what I'm trying to tell you is the training from the people that you never expect is happening to you. And so I took the receipts up to the office one day, and Mr. George Ballou, a very dignified man, said, "Ruggles, let me ask you something. Why don't you join the country club, the junior country club?" I said, "Mr. Blue, I just have one pair of pants." "I don't think I quite fit in the country." "Yes, you would." Said, "Don't cost you but $18 a year for a junior membership, and you ought to join." Well, I did. And so, maybe a month later, I'm taking receipts up to the office, and I passed by, and he said, "Hi, Ed." I said, "Hi, George." So the next day, on Saturday, I'm at Burroughs's clothing store, buying me another pair of pants to go to the country club. And Mr. Van Meter, who was a tobacco buyer from Lexington, and I carried papers to him on a paper route when I came to university. That's the way I worked my way through school. But he lived on Fairway Drive in Lexington, and he was in Burroughs's clothing store. And he said, "Ruggles, can I speak to you a minute?" And I said, "Yeah." He leaned across the clothes right where I leaned like that, and he said, "Any time that you speak to a dignified man like Mr. George Blue," I believe I'd call him Mr. Blue. "I heard you call him George yesterday, and I don't think probably that's proper." Well, Natalie, where's the hole I can fall in? And so when I came to university, I applied to go to vet school after I finished 2 years, to go to vet school up at Cornell. And in August, I got my money back, my deposit, and I got the telling me that the veterans from out of they wouldn't accept any more people from out of New York State. So I'd finished 2 years, and Doris and I got married September of '47, and I went to work for Haggard & Haggard, veterinary firm, riding with Bill McGee. And I had the most wonderful experience, and the farm managers on those racehorse farms were top people. And it was one of the greatest experiences I ever had. But I want to tell you of 2 incidences that happened. We went Faraway Farm, and I got the Doctor Man of War, and with McGee, that was his responsibility on Faraway Farm. But he was a broodmare man, and Gainesway Farm was on Tate's Creek Pike. Well, when we were out there one day, a mare had foaled and she was paralyzed in her hips and down on the ground, and McGee went in and the boys were trying to raise her with a strap and so forth. And they kept letting her slip out. And I said, now if you boys, and see here's the professional McGee, I said, if you boys would get you a bale of hay and put it in behind that mare and raise her up a little bit and then put one on top of it and raise her a little more and put one out in front of it, and you build a staircase step like that, you'll get her up. McGee said, hell yes, that young vet's done more of this than I have. Go ahead and show him how to do that. Well, go ahead. Then he steps out with the manager, and they're standing outside, and I do just exactly what I said, and we raised the mare up. Well, that was fine. The old Irishman out there said, that young vet, he sure as hell knows what he's doing, boy. We get out the front gate, and McGee said, Ruggles, stops the car. He said, ask me any question you want to when we're in this car alone, but don't open your damn mouth again while we're on the farm. So, it's broodmare time. He's been up all night taking care of broodmares, and we go to Faraway Farm. And we go out and we check old Man of War out. And naturally, he's 25 years old then. And come back to the breeding barn, we're gonna breed a mare. Aunt and I like to bring War Admiral in and have him jump around like that, We had the mare already in hot in the shackles and everything. And I said, Ananias, Doc McGee has been up all night. He's got his pants over his pajamas. Let's breed the mare so we can get out of here. Yes, sir. Ready to go out. We get out to the gate. McGee shuts the motor up. Ruggles, I'm gonna fire your ass the next time you open your mouth on the farm. So, in that company of people, in the 5 years I was at the university, I carried paper route. 14 miles a day and make 8 o'clock class. So I bought me a $12 bicycle. The last time that I carried that paper route, I stopped by Cranfield Fray to collect. Then Mr. Frey said, Ruggles, what are you going to do when you graduate? I said, Purina. I'm going to have an interview with Purina. And I'm thinking about going to work for them. He said, have you ever thought about extension service? What is extension service? Oh, county agent, Alan. I said, no. I hadn't even thought about it. Well, suppose I set you up an interview with my good friend, Mahan, who is the extension supervisor over there under the dean, for an interview. And I said, okay. So I go back down to the office at McGee, and Shafee and Hook are the 2 men that are mixed medicine and so forth. And Charlie Kinney is the manager of Stoner Creek Stud in Bourbon County, and he's in that day, and he says, how you doing, little doc? They call me little doc. See, I had nothing, But I'd ridden 2 years with McGee, and I would sit in the back seat on the medicine, and the vets that he graduated would come in and I could answer their questions, but I do damn well better to keep my mouth shut. So, Mr. Kennedy said, Ruggles, what are you gonna do when you graduate? I said, well, Mr. Frey over here at Kernfield Frey's set me up and interviewed to go talk about extension. Oh, he said, listen, we need an assistant agent in Bourbon County. Said, you tell them send you to Bourbon County. Well, I said, by gosh, I will. So I go in for the interview, and Mr. Mahan said, now, Ruggles, we can start you at $2,800. But I can't guarantee we can keep you after the 1st of January, because our budget's short. And I said, well, Mr. Mahan, I've been in school 5 years. I've been earning $2,600 a year, carrying a paper and selling shoes 3 afternoons a week and all day Saturday. And if I can earn that, just $200 more with a degree, I said, you'll find the money at the end of the year, I'm sure. But I tell you, before I tell you I'm going to take the job, I want to go to Bourbon County. He said, what do you know about Bourbon County? I said, well, Mr. Charlie Kennedy told me they need an assistant agent in Bourbon County, and I can live here in Lexington and see how it works out. He said, no, I have to send you to Owen County. And I said, well, I have to go talk to my wife, because we went to Owen County with her parents to hold some antique furniture, and she bumped on those 33 curves between standing ground and Owenton 5 times and coming back. So, and I did. So I go and I said, Darce, what do you think? She said, well, if that's what you want to do, let's do it. So I went to Owen County. I was there 6 months, and I took the kids to 4-H achievement up in Covington. And coming back, I stopped by the Ohio River and let them throw rocks in the river for about 30 minutes. And if I can remember to pick that story up later, I'll pick it up. So when I came back, I stopped by and was so proud of the kids, and to tell Conrad, and I was telling him all about it and everything, he said, Ruggles, how would you like to go to Bourbon County? Well, hell, they'd crush me. I said, am I doing a good enough job here? He said, yeah, but H.F. Link called, and he's coming to interview tomorrow or Monday for assistant agent in Bourbon County. And I said, well, I don't know about that. He said, oh, you ought to take it. I said, why? He said, well, you're just in training here. But if you go to Bourbon County, you get a permanent appointment, and you get the franking privilege. What's a franking privilege? You get to send out free mail. I thought, boy, that's great. So I was paying $35 a month rent in Owenton with no utilities. I came to the only house I could find in Bourbon County, $60 a month, and Mr. Payne, don't you know, he was an Englishman he was the farm manager for Hancock. And $60 plus, I had all the utilities and everything to pay. How in God's grace am I going to do this? And so the first day I go in, Phil Wellington's county agent in Bourbon County. I said, Mr. Wellington, they didn't give me a raise, they didn't pay me anything to move, and I don't know how I'm going to make it. He said, well, I'll tell you how you're going to make it. Come in here. He said, you see that soil lab? That's the first county soil lab in the state of Kentucky, and you're going to run it. And I'm going to send you to university and have John Harrison train you on soil testing. And the Farm Bureau owns the rock quarry, and they pay 50 cents a sample, and you're going to get that 50 cents a sample. And I tested 1,500 samples that year at $750, and that's what saved me. because I didn't have, I'm making $2,800 a year, so you can imagine. At that time, Phil was making $6,000, and I said, man, if I ever make $6,000, I'll be flying. Okay. I was there 4 years, and Darcy and I saved $410. And H.F. Link came in, and he said, I've got an offer to send you to go over to Trimble County as county agent. I go look at it. Doris and I drove to Trimble County in Bedford. They had no water system in the town. They'd had a fire and burnt the courthouse. And the only thing I could rent was an apartment in the back of an undertaker's parlor. And I told him no thanks. They offered Anderson County to a couple other guys, and they turned it down. And when I came over here, 1st of September in 1954, I went to Michigan State that spring to work on my master's. And they offered me about $3,000 more than the university was going to pay me to come here. Wanted me to stay at Michigan State and work in 4-H up there. So I said, I'm coming back to Kentucky. And I came over here 1st September and met with the court. Frank Hostetter was a magistrate out at Alton. And Mr. Link said, I want to introduce Mr. Ruggles to you all. Fine young man, and has done an excellent job with 4-H in Bourbon County. Frank Hostetter said, I don't want to hear a damn thing about 4 High. He called it 4 High. He said, Ruggles, can you go out here and work with these old hill farmers? That's what I want to know. And I said, well, Mr. Hostetter, I won't promise you nothing, but I'll try. He said, now I make a motion, we hire this man. And so that was the beginning. The next week, I got a room at Miss Ethel Monahan's. Doris is still in Paris. On the following Saturday, they had a meeting in the Farm Bureau office over on the west side of the street, along about there where, next to the bank, upstairs there where, I don't know who's up there now. But Walter Patrick's office used to be downstairs, but it was up over there. And we went up there about noon, and they were going to put the extension office and the Farm Bureau office together. And they were talking about duty, you know, and how much time they're going to spend, and who's going to pay for this and pay for that. And I want to get back to Paris, you know, see Doris and the kids. And so here we are, meeting at noon, about 3:30. They're still arguing. Well, now, Mr. Lloyd, are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? And Lloyd had told him, I'm not looking to the Farm Bureau for money. I'm looking to fiscal court. And so this debate went on and on. And Holly Wolford said, you know, we've been talking about this thing a long time. We haven't asked the county agent anything. Ruggles, what do you got to say? And I said, I was real popular. I said, you know, we have 10 minutes worth of conversation here to settle this, and we've been arguing throughout hours about nothing, and I want to go home. And so they said, well, I guess we'll do this and that and so forth. They agreed, and we adjourned. Miss Elmore Bruner stepped over and said, Mr. Ruggles, do you know the Farm Bureau has 500 members and they're a powerful organization? And I said, I better have an answer I had on my mind. So I didn't make many friends. Okay, now let's get down into the nitty gritty. We moved in, I went up to the office, and there was a little desk over in the corner with dirt on it, and a little petri dish and some stuff. And I'd been used to having I had a room about this size, almost in the courthouse, with a soil lab. And it was furnished right. And so I went down to see Mr. Wade Gritton. Mr. Wade, we've got an extra room over there in the lower building, and I need to put a soil lab in it. And I need to build shelves for the bulletins. They've got them stacked in orange crates. And you can't do like that. But he said, you go see Holly Wolford. So I go up Wildcat, around up the hill over there, and they told me where they thought he'd be. Well, I heard a guy cussing. You never heard such cussing in your life. And I stopped the car and got out, and Kenneth Neal was disking around his corn, and cussing old mules, you could hurt him a mile. And I said, pardon me, sir, who are you? I said, well, I'm Ed Ruggles, and I'm looking for Holly Wolford. He said, he's up there at Dale and High. Where'd you come from? I said, they sent me out here to arrest a guy cussing mules. And he said, what? And I told him, no, I said, I'm the new county agent. He said, well, it's nice to meet you. So I go up to Holly, and Holly says, well, that's a good idea. You better go talk to Frank Hostetter. So I'll go out to Mr. Hostetter. And Mr. Hostetter, Holly Walker told me to come out here and see you. He said, now damn it, Irishman, every time you have a problem, I don't want you out here bothering me. What is it? And I told him. He said, what do you think it's going to cost? I said, I don't know, but maybe $500 or $600. Well, go up there to Lawrenceburg Supply or up there to Williams or Charlie McGinnis, as he's called it, Charlie McGinnis, and get what you need, and we'll take care of it. But now, every time you have a damn problem, don't come out here with it. So we built the soil lab. That spring, I guess, we'd done several, but Billy Spencer brought his father, old man Bill Spencer, in. Only time he was ever in my office. And he said, Mr. Ruggles, you didn't recommend any fertilizer for my tobacco. I said, I'm sorry. Miss Sparrow, would you please bring in Mr. Spencer's soil file? And she brought it in. Well, I said, Mr. Spencer, I recommend a 3 ton of lime on your tobacco field. Ain't never heard of putting lime on a tobacco field. Well, I said, your acid soil, any fertilizer you put on there is going to be tied up in aluminum and iron salts, and the plant can't take it up. And now your phosphate, what I recommended is ammonium nitrate and sulfate potash, because your phosphorus is 300 plus, and that's the highest cost of fertilizer, and you don't need it. Well, he said, Prentice Martin said that you're going to ruin my tobacco crop. I said, sure enough? He said, yeah. I said, well, the difference in what I've recommended and what Mr. Martin has recommended is $623. It's your money and you spend it like you want to. Well, about a week, here come another farmer. And if I'm not mistaken, I thought it was Willard Etherington. I think it was Willard. I can't remember exactly. But that was the same situation. Okay. I already shoved him in a little bit, so I walked across the hall at the courthouse and I said, Mr. Martin, my mother and father always taught me to be mannerly when I'm speaking to older people. But if you want to be county agent, I'd recommend you go to the university and apply. Because I haven't studied soils under Swinson at Michigan State or Ligon at the University of Kentucky and not know what I'm talking about. And so I turned around and I walked across the hall to Ollie Bowen's office. And Ollie said, well, good morning, Mr. Ruggles. How are you? I said, I need to speak to you, Mr. Bowen. And all right, what's on your mind? I said, Mr. Martin tells the farmers that I don't know what I'm talking about and I'm going to ruin their tobacco crop by my recommendations. Now he's the county PVA. He's running a real estate business in the courthouse. He's running a fertilizer business for Jay Dawson in the courthouse. And he's also selling growers' crop insurance in the courthouse at taxpayers' expense. And I look up on the wall, there's a nice big growers counter up there. Whose name is at the top of it as a director? Riley Ward. So I made a lot of friends in the courthouse that day. Now, how do you get started? We're talking about demonstrations. If you're going to be successful, you've got to create more goodwill than you harvest. Well, I didn't have a very good start. And you have to find one or two people that you can trust. I made one of my good friends awful mad when I told him after I'd been here 15 years that I have found 7 men in Anderson County I could trust. He said, you mean to tell me, Ruggles, that with 1,000 farmers, you just found 7 you can trust? I said, that's right. Well, I don't believe it. But what he didn't realize is what I was saying, that the 7 men that I was talking about, I could go talk to them about their farm, their family, their children, their money, what was ever on their mind, what problems were on my mind, and what I needed advice on, and it would never be brought up again unless I brought it up. And when I say that you have to create more goodwill than you harvest, and I think that as I looked when I came here, the Layman Miller was county agent, and not to do anything to speak disparagingly of him, but he quit. He was in the jewelry business. There were 2 county agents here ahead of me years back. One of them, George Insco, probably the first county agent here and he left here and went in the tobacco business up at the warehouse business. And I was talking to Mr. Insco one time, and I said, I had several people speak about you in Lawrenceburg with quite a bit of respect. He said, well, thank you. He said, you know, I had an interesting experience in Lawrenceburg. You know, we used to not fertilize tobacco. And so when we start putting tobacco fertilizer on, we put on 396. And he said, I went down to the Hoskin brothers on the ridge, you know, Raymond and his brother and so forth. And he said, I told him, I want you to put 300 pounds of 396 in the row on your tobacco. Try that. Let's try that. And he said, boy, they had the biggest tobacco down in that country, you know, and everything. And the neighbors would come over and say, ask him, how'd you grow that tobacco that big? And they said, I don't know. It just had good luck and good season, I guess. And so he asked one of the neighbors over there, asked about, looked like Hoskins had a pretty good crop of tobacco down there. He said, yeah, I talked to him about it, but he's telling me, I guess it's just a good season. But he never would discuss that he was supposed to demonstrate and tell the other neighbors about what he had done. And the farmers are in perfect competition with each other. And so they don't like to share information. But the demonstration is the way that you teach. And the demonstrations that I did with the 4-H kids were as important as the demonstrations with the adults. And so the first demonstration I did, I went out to Mr. Charlie, it's awful, on the crossroad over here, that's not terrible, Pal Taylor Road. Charlie, what's his last name? You guys ought to remember that. Well, nevertheless, he had me come out and look at alfalfa. Sowed this new alfalfa field, and it was beautiful in the fall. In the spring, it was just a plant here and there. And I said, well, Mr. Charlie, why don't we put on a demonstration out here of different varieties? And let's see what variety is best suited here. And I said, okay. So I went over to Howard Stamper, and he had Kansas Common, Oklahoma Common, and different alfalfas. And I said, Mr. Stamper, do you have any certified Atlantic? No, I said, $1.75 a pound, I can sell this for 35 cents a pound, and it's too costly to use. I said, well, would you give me enough of all of your seed that I could do a little plot work with it? He said, well, yeah. And so I went to university and I got some Atlantic. At that time, that was the variety, you know, that was resistant, root rot resistant, and so we go out there and we make plots about the size of these tables. Good seed, bad seed, good seed, bad seed, like that. And in the spring, then we have a field day, just a regular field day. And right beside here would be, with Kansas Common, over kind of 1 or 2 plants. And the Atlantic there looked like hair on a dog's back. And so that had to, you had to see it with your eye. Well, you go down and talk to a farmer, and the old farmers would tell you naturally, I was just a young pipsqueak, and he said, well, I'll tell you, now, I know you got a lot of education, but the experience is what you have to have. You have learned a lot from experience. Well, that's true, but if you have the same experience for 50 years, you haven't gained much. But you couldn't say that to them, Well, I'm trying to, the 4-H council there wasn't any organized leadership. And so I told Catherine Greenwood, the home agent, I said, let's set up community in each one of the schools out here. Let's have a community meeting and find out what the people have on their mind and what they want to do. And let's organize an extension council. At the same time, we'll organize the 4-H council. They had a 4-H association here that had died. And so it needed to be organized again. So we set up community meetings, and we went out to each of the communities, and we said we'd like for you to elect a man and woman to the extension council and to the 4-H council. And we're going to develop a plan. We'd like for you to plan on the needs of this county. Okay? At Glensboro, I had observed down at Glensboro that the black shank was killing the tobacco. And so I brought it up at that community meeting. And Wig Edmondson, Warren Duncan was the VOAG teacher, and he had taken over the agricultural education program. And Wig Edmondson said, I've observed that black shank is killing your tobacco. He said, no, that's not black shank. He said, we've been irrigating and we've drowned it. And you could hear that tobacco splitting. They had put that much water on it, but it was black shank that was killing it. And so I didn't, and I go on down to Mr. Charlie Ashby down at Van Buren. I noticed it down there. And so I asked Sid Gillis. I said, Sid, Mr. Gillis, if you had a problem and needed somebody to counsel you on it, who would you talk to? He said, I guess I've talked to Dr. Gibbs. Okay. Raymond Carlton. Raymond, if you had something on your mind and you wanted to talk to somebody that you knew you could confer, and feel comfortable, who would you talk to? Oh, he said, I guess Dr. Gibbs. And so I asked another, and I can't remember exactly whether maybe it was Jackie Catlett's father. Oh, he said, I guess Dr. Gibbs would be the best person to talk to. So I went to Dr. Gibbs. I said, Dr. Gibbs, they've got a black shank problem down here, and they don't recognize it. And if they use the same variety as tobacco, next year, they're going to wipe them out. So about 5 or 6 days, got a telephone. Ruggles? Yeah. It's Wig Edmondson. How are you, Mr. Edmondson? Can you get that Russell Hunt down here to talk about that black shank? And I said, I think you got an awful good idea. He said, well, I wish you'd try to get him down here. And so we took I brought Russell Hunt down to Glensboro and talked about black shank. I went down to Charlie Ashby and I told him the same thing. He said, Mr. Ruggles, can you come down here and talk to the boys about this? I said, I sure can. Well, he said, you come down here, and this in February before seeding time. He said, well, what can we do about it? I said, well, we have Kentucky 37 that is resistant to black shane, and that's what you probably ought to stock. Well, a lot of people didn't know it, but Charlie Ashby financed the farmers in Van Buren and up and down the river. They didn't come to Lawrenceburg to get money. He carried them. And so I go down there, had that little apron on, and I go down there, and they're all sitting back there around the pot-bellied stove with their playing rook and checkers. And he pulled a little apron, and he said, now boys, he said, put your checkers up and your cards up for a little while. I said, this is our county agent, and he's gonna talk about the black shank, this tobacco disease that's hurting us down here. Well, you see, I could have gone down there and talked till I'd blue in the face, and they would have ignored me. Because, and so, what I'm getting to is identify who people listen to. And then, they're not going to listen to a young pipsqueak, you know, but there's somebody in every community. Okay, now that's what I based my graduate work on when I went, was how do you identify with a postcard size, or 3 little questions to go into a community. And I believe you can go into a community that you've never been in. And if you ask the right question, you'll find out the tail that wags the dog. So, what kind of problems did we have here? Well, one of the worst ones was brucellosis. And so Dr. Binks and I was in Rotary with Binks and Dr. Lawson, and there was H.G. McRae, Warren Wheaton, some of the boys that said, Ruggles, you ought to work on this brucellosis program. Said it's rampant in this county. And I said, well, let's have a meeting and discuss it. So I got our local vet, the federal vet, and the state vet, Dr. Lawson, and we held a meeting in the courthouse. And the courthouse was full. Now, I want to back this up a little bit. When I came to this county, I didn't know the first person. And the University of Kentucky did not inform me about anybody's name, number, or anything. And so I came in blind, not understanding or knowing anything about the gravity and the control of thought process between the two banks. And so we called this meeting, and I'm coming around the corner from the courthouse, seeing that it was set up and everything, and Walter Major and Louis Sherwood met me on the corner, and I said, are you gentlemen coming to the meeting tonight? And they said, what's that? I said, the brucellosis meeting. And Miss Sherwood said, son, that could cost you your job. And I said, well, if it can, I don't guess the job's worth having. Well, we met that night in the courthouse. They were standing around the courtroom full. And Dr. Lawson made his presentation, and Dr. Binks made his, and the federal and state military and so forth. And actually, one of the farmers stood up and said, I make a motion that we organize this. Well, they did. In 30 days, we had 96% of the farmers and the cattle in the county signed up. And one old farmer down in the end of the county came up to me when we had the meeting down. We had a community meeting, notified all, you know. He came up to me and said, Mr. Ruggles, I'd love to work on this, but he said, I can't read. If you get somebody to help me, I'll make every farm on this road. And I got somebody to help him. And in 30 days, we had the whole county signed up. So they met in my office. Chief McRae said, boys, we're ready to turn this in, but he said, there's 3 characters haven't signed it yet. And they said, well, who's that? Louis Sherwood, Walter Major, and Ed Ruggles. I said, what the devil? What have I got to do about signing it? McRae said, well, I sold you a damn Jersey heifer that you milk every day. And your name's supposed to be on here just like any other farmer. Okay, give it here, I signed it. Now, do you want me to take it up to the bank? And they all said, yes, take it up there, give him a chance. Took it up there. And I'm sure McRae did it for honoring us. And he said, we're sending this petition in to the federal boys today, and there's only 2 people haven't signed it, and that's you and Miss Sherwood, Walter. Miss Sherwood said, oh, give it here. He said, hell, I don't mind signing it, but I hate like hell to sign it under Ed Ruggles' name. And McRae did it just for honoring us. I mean, but the fact that I was willing to gamble on that CRISPR thing gave those men enough confidence that they knew I'd stick with them. So we did the Brussels